I've got to be somebody that I would want to talk to. Again, if I were in crisis, be normal, don't yell, be approachable. You would go to an abortion facility and you would hear angry people with angry signage on the sidewalk yelling, "Don't kill your baby, please." And maybe it was a kind of an element of desperation, right? And what we heard from women who had been on the receiving end of that. Well, hey, everyone, and welcome to the Lauren Muzyka Show. I'm your host, Lauren Muzyka, attorney and president CEO of Sidewalk Advocates for Life. So excited, so blessed to have you with me once again. I am really excited about this episode. It's actually going to be a little bit of a break from this season's theme of healing, which many of you have told me has been powerful. And of course, as always, thank you so much for your feedback. And yet, ironically, it's not totally a departure in that I'm going to cover things that are not helpful to do if you're reaching out to abortion-bound mothers and fathers, if you hope to encourage them to choose life. In other words, these things can do damage if you're not careful. And the last thing you want is someone having to heal from something that you did, that we did, right? When we go to train new sidewalk advocates, we provide them with a thorough outreach training and a philosophy or a paradigm, if you will, to work through, and the research-based reasons why that approach works as opposed to another approach. But sometimes it can be helpful to flip the script and share the things that you absolutely should not do on the sidewalk, or I would contend anywhere in life, right? I've often said that the sidewalk has been one of my greatest teachers, that it truly can be a microcosm for the culture and for life at large. Sometimes I think that the don'ts are even more important than the do's, especially knowing that reaching out at an abortion facility has a special sensitivity to it. Naturally, you are reaching out to women and families in crisis. They're so in crisis that they're considering taking the life of their preborn child. And the last thing that we want to do is thwart a sincere, hope-filled conversation. And I think the other thing is that the don'ts make it clear why we approach these important conversations, truly the most important conversation happening in America today, the way that we do, and why that approach is so successful. As of this recording, sidewalk advocates across the country and beyond have helped to save the lives of nearly 25,000 preborn babies. And with that is a mother and a family that has been spared the trauma of abortion. So again, something here is working. So with that, I want to go ahead and jump into, at least at this juncture, my top 5 things not to do during sidewalk outreach. So here we go. Okay. Number 1, don't be weird. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but let me unpack this for a little bit. In other words, be approachable and someone you would want to talk to if you were in crisis. So this means please don't go to the sidewalk in a Grim Reaper costume. Please, no angry signage, or I would even argue political signage. There's definitely a time and a place for political protests. This is a mother who's in crisis. She can't see a way out of her situation, and a sign that just says, "Stop abortion now," is not really addressing her crisis, her situation, right? I would also contend that we should stay away from homemade signs, because sometimes if we're not careful, those end up looking like ransom notes, right? And I'm not even meaning to be critical, because I've made some homemade signs in my day. I have just learned through time that if I'm going to compete, so to speak, with multi-billion-dollar Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry, I have to up my game. I'm trying to reach the heart of the modern millennial or Gen Z woman in crisis. And so that means I've got to be somebody that I would want to talk to. Again, if I were in crisis, be normal, don't yell, be approachable. Again, approachability really is the key here. If someone can write you off as a weirdo, they will also write off your POV. So, to be able to see a life saved, the idea here is that we have to first win the conversation. If we don't win the conversation, then we can't win her trust. And if we don't win her trust, we won't win her away from the abortion facility and encourage her to avail herself of the services of our local life affirming pregnancy resource center, to literally abandon her plan to possibly have an abortion that day and to completely change course and to see the pregnancy help movement as a solution, a new solution to her crisis, to her problem, right? And the four virtues that I would keep in mind as we're kind of unpacking this is or are peaceful, prayerful, loving, and law abiding. Peaceful, prayerful, loving, and law abiding are the essential virtues on the sidewalk. So let me break each of these down. Peaceful means calm and nonviolent. You cannot give to someone what you don't have. If you are agitated, if you are chaotic, if you are fearful, she's already experiencing that, right? You want to be somebody where she says, wow, I want what they have. And of course, I think we can all agree nonviolent is a given, right? We don't want to do anything where someone's person or property feels threatened. They won't even give us the conversation, okay? Self-explanatory. Prayerful. We are prayerful because we believe with God all things are possible. And apart from him, we can do nothing. That's what the scriptures tell us. The idea here is that many times as we are reaching out to women and families in crisis, we are inviting God into that because he knows best really what they need. Yes, we might have a few really great ideas. We might be able to get pretty far, but at the end of the day, it's his love, his peace, his grace that wins these people over eventually from, abandoning the plan to take the life of their child and avail themselves of hope. And who gives us true hope? That is Christ himself, who conquered sin and death. And every challenge that we could possibly face in life, he has the answer. He has the grace for their situation. And so inviting God into that, being prayerful, praying before, during, and after outreach. And then loving. We're told that the greatest of these is love. People will not care what they have to say if they don't first know that we care. And so going to people and letting them know first that we love them, that we care for them as people right in that moment, not because even of what they choose, but because of their dignity, someone who's made in God's image and likeness. Can we meet people with great love first and really love them into a decision for life? That's where all of this comes from. In fact, I hope it's love that moves us to the sidewalk or, ministering to a friend or family member considering abortion before anger would ever enter the picture, even though I understand righteous anger is part of this, right? It's just how do we approach this in a way that's most productive? And then the last thing I would say is law abiding. Why are we law abiding? Why have we at Sidewalk Advocates for Life chosen to be law abiding? Law abiding is important because it builds trust. As soon as we cross that line, they don't know us from Adam. They don't know what we're going to do next. And I think we have to remember that we are in a day and age of school shootings, right? And there are people who first enter a property and they seem peaceful, and then something happens and all hell breaks loose, right? They don't know who we are. We are strangers coming into their lives. And so that idea that we're not going to cross that line, that we're inviting them to come to us, which in order to choose life, they have to come towards us. They have to come towards life. They have to come towards God. That's part of the deal, right? We can't force someone to choose life. We might delay an abortion that day if we break the law and the police come and we're getting arrested and we're doing a sit-in or whatever. And again, I'm not even meaning to litigate the old Operation Rescue of the 80s and 90s that did these kind of large scale sit-ins, right? That's a whole different podcast. That was a whole different time. But I've even talked to people who have been through that movement and switched to modern sidewalk counseling, and they tell me every time that they actually saved more babies with modern sidewalk outreach, that these virtues work, that this outreach works. If we have an attractive offer of help, if we're meeting her where she's at, if we're loving her, if we're serving her, that's very attractive to someone who is remotely open, right? So keep this in mind as we look to be who we're called to be on the sidewalk, especially if we're Christians and we bear his name. All right, the second thing is don't yell, don't kill your baby. The focus here is mom, baby, God. Let me explain that. Okay. Luckily, at this point in history, I'm hearing this less and less on the sidewalk. It used to be a handful of years ago, several years ago, where you would go to an abortion facility and you would hear angry people with angry signage on the sidewalk yelling, "Don't kill your baby, please." And maybe it was a kind of an element of desperation, right? And what we heard from women who had been on the receiving end of that is their immediate reaction was, "You don't know me. You don't know my situation. How dare you call me a murderer right away?" We absolutely understand that abortion is the egregious taking of innocent human life. That is indisputable. If you know, not just believe, but you know that life begins at conception, right? We know that a life is hanging in the balance. She doesn't have the moral right to do what she's doing, but she unfortunately has the so-called legal right, right? So us just first of all yelling at someone, period, but then yelling out, "Don't kill your baby." She's not in baby mode. She's in mom crisis mode, okay? And there was this beautiful, well-known sidewalk counselor that I was initially trained by named Karen Black Mercer. And what she put forward at one point in her training was that, we as pro-lifers, we as a people of faith and conscience have things in the right order. You could say that the right or the natural order is God, baby, mom. But a woman in crisis mode, a woman in self-preservation mode has all of that inverted. She's in crisis mode. So she's thinking about herself first, not even necessarily meaning to, but that's what happens when you're in crisis. She's pushing baby to the recesses of her mind. She's pushing God even further away, because if she stops to think about what he might say about this, she might change her mind, and that scares her, right? And then you've got the abortion industry. You've got Planned Parenthood coming in, swooping in and saying, $500, nobody has to know. It's not really a baby. It's just a clump of cells, right? I mean, she is getting truckloads of propaganda telling her that this really isn't a child, that this is just a clump of cells, and at some point in the pregnancy, it magically turns into a baby, right? And so she's wrestling with all these ideas, and she's trying to sort this out. And meanwhile, trying to reconcile present with future self, and just sees her future life going up in smoke. And so again, you've got this entity that comes in and says, $500, nobody has to know, your life will magically go back to normal. And that's the great lie. And so what we as a people of faith and conscience can do, just like Christ has met us in our great need, is we can run to where she is, not leaving behind what we know to be true about abortion. Yes, it is the egregious taking of innocent human life. Absolutely. But using language that she can understand, meeting her where she's at, starting with mom first, right? We care about you. We love you. We've got real help for you today. And then transitioning, by the way, how far along are you? Oh, you're 8 weeks. Did you know that your baby has a heartbeat, has brain waves, is sucking his or her thumb? Boy or girl, we got to wait a handful more weeks to find out, right? But you're painting this picture of life. Again, something that the abortion facility probably won't do. In fact, we hear all the time that abortion facilities are hiding the sonogram picture from her. They're turning the screen away from her during her ultrasound. And so we're painting that picture of life for her and just giving her basic life before birth facts, fetal development. And then we might transition at one point. By the way, do you have a faith? Do you pray? And just reinforcing any good that we hear, planting seeds. The idea here is that we can't jerk someone to Jesus. We can't win somebody suddenly over to our POV or to our worldview. I mean, so many of us have been working on our friends or relatives over the Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner table for years. And quite often on the sidewalk, especially, we've got 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes if we get that luxury. Yes, once in a great while, you get the luxury of a 30-minute conversation, depending on how your abortion facility is situated with the public right-of-way and driveway and all of that, right? Sometimes we get those longer conversations, but most of the time, we're having quick interactions. And the only way that we're going to bridge the gap as people who are already standing in grace, right, is we have to be the ones to reach down and say, I see you. We love you, and we can help you. And that's a very different message from don't kill your baby. Again, just something to think about. All right, number 3, do not be a mouse or a doormat. And then on the flip side, don't relentlessly chase people down. The idea here is to find a balance of loving persistence. I've seen both ends of this in Sidewalk Advocates before, right? Sometimes what happens is we're not wanting to be pushy. And so when we make that offer of help on the sidewalk, it's a little bit like we're selling tickets to some sports game, right? It's like, hey, we just want you to know our pregnancy center's right next door and we can do all these cool things. And you guys just think about it. I'll be out here praying. Let me know. My name's Lauren, and it's like, okay, yeah, we might have gotten out some great information, but it's like, did we lean into the seriousness of what it is that's about to happen? And then on the flip side, I have seen some people just get so worked up and they're chasing people down and they're trying again and again and again. And yes, I do think you should try again and maybe even again when people are running to the car or boyfriend's out on the porch smoking a cigarette and you want to reoffer that help, right? But I mean it's like overwhelming. Like this person is just relentlessly grabbing on, metaphorically grabbing onto coattails and, bombarding them. And you're just not going to get anywhere with somebody who's already overwhelmed if you're doing that. And so what I would put forward is a balance. Okay. You want to lean into it and say something like, hey, I'm Lauren. Our women's center next door, we've got all this wonderful help available. We would love to be there for you. We know you're here because you're in a tough spot. I'm going to be out here praying for you all morning. You can come out at any time. I'd love to get you next door. Betty's on duty. I know that you're going to love her. We'd love to help you guys. Please don't do this to yourself. Just know we're pulling for you this morning. There's an earnestness. There is a caring. There's a sincerity. There's a safety in that balance, right? And it really plants seeds. And we hear from so many clients that when they hear that kind of message, that tenor of message, and they go inside the abortion facility, that's the type of message that rolls around on their heart and their mind, right? And so again, I joke in the training that there's a fine line between loving persistence and stalking, and we need to find it. I'm kind of joking when I say that, but I think it's fair. Like, what does it look like to treat this with the seriousness that we need to, but also still be approachable? Really something to think about. Again, all of these tie into each other if you think about it. So important. Okay. Number 4, do not be a pro-life political billboard, and watch how you use abortion victim photography, sometimes referred to as graphic images. Okay. So a simple way to say this is we want to dress professionally and look approachable. I have seen pro-lifers at times come out to the sidewalk and, they're wearing a shirt that says like abortion is murder, right? And then maybe they've got suspenders. And do you remember like the old TGI Fridays restaurants back in the 90s where the waiter or waitress would come to the table and they had what they called flair, like all these fun little buttons that had a whole bunch of messages on them. It was their flair. It was like their collection of messages that they were displaying to have some fun with the tables that they were serving, right? Okay, so I've seen pro-lifers do this. They go to the sidewalk and they want so badly for something to get through that they've got like 100 messages. I mean, I'm kind of exaggerating, but kind of not. 100 messages on their chest, all over their suspenders, and it just looks weird. And it's not simple. And for a woman who is just in a world of chaos and confusion, again, it's weird. It's not simple. It's confusing. What is the main message? Okay. So again, this blatantly kind of political, screamy messaging can really hinder our ability to even start a conversation with a woman headed inside. And so that's why we at Sidewalk Advocates for Life have gone to great lengths to think about what we're wearing. And so we wear, for example, branded t-shirts and safety reflector vests. It helps us to stand out from the road. It's great for safety if we're inviting incoming motorists to stop. And they have like our simple pin drop logo and say something like volunteer, right? We come across, as people have told us, as friendly and responsible and helpful. Like we actually know what we're doing because we have hours and hours of training behind us and we dress that way. And then we're able to compete, so to speak, with multi-billion-dollar Planned Parenthood, America's abortion empire. And it really makes a difference in people saying, I think I can talk to that person. I think they have something for me. Now, likewise, graphic images, otherwise known as abortion victim photos. These can be huge turnoffs to abortion facility clients. Now, some of you are listening to this and you're ready to take me to the mat on this. Let me explain for a second. There is a whole body of research called right brain research that was commissioned by the Vitae Foundation over the course of a few decades. There's been at least 8 research studies, I think more than that, many more than that now. But what they conclude is that the type of messaging that's effective to a woman who's considering abortion in order to encourage her to choose life is one of help and hope, helping her to reconcile present with future self. And that if you come in with a baby oriented message or even kind of a more graphic image, right, an abortion victim photo, it says in the research that literally something called cognitive dissonance takes place. It's like it can't compute. Her brain's not there. She's in mom crisis mode. And so shoving this angry image at her is already kind of calling her out on her situation. It doesn't say, hey, I care about you and your crisis. Yes, we agree abortion is wrong. But the question is, how do you have the most productive conversation such that you can win that child's life and her over to a decision for life, right? Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I do believe that abortion victim photos can be very helpful, such as an educational setting where there's a chance for dialogue. And if you have the ability to creatively even solicit consent, even better. So let me give you an example. Our friends at Students for Life of America said that there was one time that they were doing an on-campus display, a pro-life display, right? And they had this album, and it basically said, pictures of the abortion Holocaust or something related to that. And it basically invited students that if they wanted to, they could open the album and look at these pictures. And they said that most of the students who came by actually opened the album because they presented it in such a way that it was like, hey, don't push the red button, right? And everybody kind of wants to push the red button and see what this whole thing is about. But shoving it in her face, her thought tends to be, again, you don't know me, you don't know my situation, right? Then the abortion facility is telling her that we made those images up and they don't even matter. And, that this is propaganda and all this jazz. And then that's our main message. And there you go, it's out the window. But if we approach her in love, no one can argue with that. If we approach her with resources, no one can argue with that. And then at the right time, we bring in, probably fairly quickly, baby and God. And we're able to paint a picture of life and then God. Again, don't hear what I'm not saying. God always comes first. A mother puts her child before herself. So of course we want it to be God, baby, mom. But a woman in crisis or self-preservation mode, she does better when she sees that we care about her first, and then her heart is more open to the greater conversation. All right, number 5, last point here. Don't fail to compete well with the abortion industry. Win her business by being professional, knowledgeable, and full of resources. As women are considering abortion, they are finding acceptance and non-judgment at Planned Parenthood or their respective abortion facility, right? The people that they speak to, they're not passing judgment. They're not taking moral inventory in regards to getting pregnant or for wanting an abortion in the first place, right? I mean, you can go to any pro-abortion website, especially your local Planned Parenthood website. Again, Planned Parenthood is America's abortion empire. And you can see just how calm, matter of fact, and helpful their phrasing is. And I just want to challenge us that, again, we don't have to leave behind what we know to be good, right, and true to also be a non-judgmental, accepting face on the sidewalk. And this is an idea I think that people struggle with a lot. Empathy does not mean that we agree with people. It just means that we are willing to stand in their shoes and experience what they're experiencing for a moment. If you've ever talked to a young woman on the sidewalk who's about to get kicked out of her house by her parents, that's scary when you're 16 and 17. That's scary when you don't know where you're going to live and you're in survival mode and you may be sleeping under a bridge. It's scary when you are a mom of 2 teenagers and you have a surprise pregnancy, you're a single mom, right? And you are living paycheck to paycheck and you're wondering how your family is going to eat. Yes, it doesn't mean it's okay to then take the life of an innocent child. But again, understanding what these women are hearing from the abortion industry, this entity swooping in and saying, hey, we'll just take care of the problem, $500, nobody has to know, or we have a fully funded late-term abortion waiting for you across the country. We just helped a mom named Maria, if you've listened to prior episodes, abandon a late-term abortion appointment and choose life. And hearing her story and walking in her shoes, I have nothing but love for Maria. And Maria knows what she was considering was wrong. She had to wrestle that out, come to terms with that after she chose life. It's like the scales fell from her eyes and she saw what she was a part of, what she had lined up, right? But the other thing that's really helpful in this is recognizing that we are sinners saved by God too. There is not one of us that has everything figured out. We are on the journey right alongside every other human being and just trying to get up the next day and do better and the next day and do better. And hopefully we're doing it with God's grace and following Him, the only one who can ultimately rescue us from ourselves. And so, how much more do we as a people of faith and conscience and love and peace and hope need to be that supportive, non-judgmental, empathetic shoulder to lean on? How much more do we need to be somebody that we would want to talk to if we were in crisis? Because if we're not that, we're going to lose her. We're going to lose her. And so I just encourage you, please think about what it means to be a safe place. And if we're going to compete, in this great big David Goliath battle, little Lauren standing in front of, this Planned Parenthood mega facility, reaching out to clients going in. And yes, we turn a lot of them away. We do turn a lot of them away. Some days on the sidewalk, we don't know if we've turned anybody away, but former Planned Parenthood director Abby Johnson says that at the last Planned Parenthood conference she went to before she came to the pro-life side, they told her that when there's a peaceful, prayerful presence in front of their facilities, that the cancellation or no-show rate can go as high as 75%. Can go as high as 75%. And so what that tells me is that when we are espousing these values and we are working to be approachable and we're maintaining professionalism, that we have resources, we're knowledgeable, we're helpful, we are competing well with the abortion industry. God loves a good old David and Goliath battle. We do win. We are winning. We're in the process of winning. At the very least, we're on the winning team, and there's going to be an end to all this someday. And so, again, lives and souls hang in the balance today. Are we being who we need to be? And then maintaining that disposition all the way through. And here's kind of my last subpoint to this. So many times when we make an offer of help on the sidewalk, this is what happens, right? This woman, this family, they hear our offer of help. Hey, Pregnancy Resource Center right next door, a few miles down the road. This is all the great things we can help you with. They're listening to you. They seem engaged. They seem like they're going to choose life. And all of a sudden they go, well, we've got an appointment and we'd like to go hear what they have to say. And inside you're panicking. You're going, whoa, I thought I did a great job. I thought they wanted to say yes. I thought they were going to turn around. Oh my gosh, they're going to go in there and it's like the abortion facility is a vortex and it's going to suck them back there and they're gone forever and I've just lost. And so we start panicking. We start getting desperate. We start pulling at people. We step out of that approachable, professional, loving, safe demeanor. Right. And we're like, please don't, and these people are like, whoo, boy, who is this person? And then they decide that to go inside the abortion facility, possibly away from us. And so I just want to encourage us that if we can hold it together and rest in the power of prayer and maintain our disposition, there's a good number of them that will go inside and experience the darkness of the abortion facility. And they'll feel that contrast between light and dark, and they'll want to be back out on the sidewalk with us. Famous sidewalk counseling priest Monsignor Riley says that about half of the women who ended up choosing life with him on the sidewalk were women who heard his offer of help, had to experience the darkness of the abortion facility, feel that contrast, and then they wanted to be back out on the sidewalk with us. So if we can hold it together, again, find that balance, right, in our approach, and we can maintain that balance throughout our time on the sidewalk, many of them will come back out and let us walk them over or drive them over to our local pregnancy resource center. All right, well, in closing, here's the long and short of it. To be successful at Sidewalk Outreach, to start conversations, to win hearts and minds, to help be an agent of transformation, we have to be more Christ-like. We have to show the people we encounter that we love them, and we're not there to judge them. That's God's job, right? Doesn't mean, again, we condone what is taking place. But it just means that we take that righteous anger and we channel it in the most productive direction possible. First and foremost, people will not talk to us if they don't feel like we're there to genuinely care and help them, right? That's why we don't shout on the sidewalk. That's why we don't bring angry signs to the sidewalk and shove them in people's faces. That's why we respect others' boundaries. I mean, it's really what God has saddled himself with. He gives us freedom to respond to him. He doesn't jerk us to himself. He invites us and he leans into it. And sometimes, I mean, how many signs and wonders have we seen around us? And, we've pushed away for a long time. God just keeps trying to invite us and invite us and invite us, right? We are his hands and feet, offering those loving, life-affirming alternatives. And ultimately, what happens is not up to us. It's up to God and those who must respond to his grace. We plant the seeds and we trust the Holy Spirit to take it from there. And even should that woman choose abortion that day, here's what I rest in. God is not done with them yet. He is the hound of heaven in the best way possible. He's going to continue to pursue them in the best way possible and invite them to his abundant life. And yes, it grieves us anytime a life or many lives are lost that day. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But the beautiful thing is we know that God loves them even more than we do. And if we can let go and if we can surrender, and if we can trust that he is at work in every situation, again, look at the fruit of Sidewalk Advocates for Life, nearly 25,000 babies saved, over 100 eternal souls who have left the abortion business with the help and witness of a Sidewalk Advocate, over 60 closures because you help enough clients, you help enough workers, we're hitting demand, we're hitting supply. It's hard for abortion businesses to stay open. And that's just our ministry alone. Look at 40 Days for Life. Look at some of these beautiful sister ministries that have experienced so much fruit because somebody showed up to pray and to love and to reach out. It's powerful. And more than that, I would put forward, it's really the only way you can effectively win someone over. They have to say yes to it. Thank you again, everyone, so much for joining me for another episode of the Lauren Muzyka Show. We'll be back here next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central via the Sidewalk Advocates for Life Facebook page, YouTube channel, or wherever you get podcasts. Thanks so much, everybody.